Hello and welcome to another episode review for the Nijigasaki School Idol Club anime, this being episode 9. I'm Karin.
And I'm Honey Panda Bunny. Overall, I thought the episode was fine. It was nice to see a different side of Karin, especially towards the end where she's a bit more softer and a bit more sisterly, almost a bit teasing in the end credits part of it. It's not my favourite episode so far, but it's a really good one, and it was really interesting to see the growth of Karin to being not interested at all to the idol group to suddenly obviously being so into wanting to make this her performance in this episode.
I would agree. I think that overall this was a fine episode. It was nice that they retained the more vulnerable aspects of Karin's character that we see in All Stars, and it shows that there is a lot of depth to the character than just the cool, sexy, big sister type. Plus we do get some comic relief Karin that was buried under the surface, which is what I had been dying to see. While there was some good highlights, I do feel that in parts this episode was a little rushed, and it did feel a little unorganised in terms of how the episode was planned out. It felt like this could have actually been a two-parter that was crammed into one episode. I would not say that it's a bad episode, but it did feel a little lacking, especially compared to the more recent strong episodes we had.
It was interesting to see that their popularity has grown at this point, and that it's almost becoming a bit of like a hazard for Setsuna, the sense of, oh, I need to hide this side of me, because I think it's cool. And then also Karin gets approached obviously as well, and she's yet to obviously perform at this point, but she's still also quite popular between the girls, and it's not because of her modelling, it's because of her being an idol, so that's interesting for me.
So I did find the first scene interesting as well, and Setsuna was really cute there, hiding behind Karin so that people won't spot her. I think it was a really good choice to have Setsuna play such a large supporting role in this episode, as she's not had much to do in the last few episodes, because they have a friendly on and off rivalry in All Stars, so having her involved in this episode, which does deal with the idea of being friends but rivals, I thought was a really nice touch. So we come to the scene where they're in the Nijigasaki club room. Kasumi is showing off a photo of her. Karin teases her a little bit. And then we also get Haruka contacting Kanata. And then it's Haruka and Himeno that comes to the club room. And it's a character that was in the previous episode. And they both essentially offer them a place at this music venue called Diver Fest that happens in Odaiba once a year. And I do like that in this scene we actually get a really nice bit of continuity from the past few episodes. So obviously they mentioned that they've grown more popular thanks to the PVs and Rina's first live, and then obviously Himeno mentions specifically seeing Shizuka's performance, and obviously Haruka's here as well thanks to the earlier scene with Kanata. So the last 3 episodes have actually subconsciously built up to this.
I really liked that they were discussing their popularity, and interestingly enough it's probably for the most part Rina's PV that's done the most here, because obviously with the Haruka situation you do have obviously with the Kanata helping find this opportunity, but the popularity before this was mostly Rina's, I'd say, because with Shizuka obviously it was a school situation, not a I'm going to perform for a wide mass of people situation.
I do think that it's something that's been built up bit by bit. It's obviously the PVs first catch attention, and then obviously stuff like Rina's performance, Kanata's performance, and then obviously Shizuka's last week have naturally increased the popularity over time.
It's also interesting that with these like end cards coming in, I know it won't happen, but I really wish that we'd be able to get see what Nijigasaki are up against, if that makes sense, because we're seeing the physical characters and we're hearing that they're popular, but we're not getting to see what their talents are, how they perform.
This does play into this scene as well, because Himeno obviously mentions that there is a catch, unfortunately, to them inviting Nijigasaki, which is that it's fine for Shinomine and the Tall or schools. Their school idol clubs are groups, but Nijigasaki are sole performers, so unless all of them perform at once, only one of them is going to be able to perform on stage. And I actually thought that this has a very interesting setup, which actually could have been played over the course of a few episodes, and I would have really liked to have seen this expanded. So to have it introduced and resolved in this episode, I did think was a little bit disappointing. But saying that, I do actually really like the next scene where they're talking about what to do, and I thought it was really interesting that when they were approaching the idea of who would perform, they all start to raise their hands because they all really want to be the solo performer. This is an opportunity, any chance that they get, because this is something they truly love. But they also hold back just due to the bonds they share, and because of their friendships, they don't want to turn on each other essentially. actually.
It was really nice to see Karin actually be the one that's like the realist here, of being like, okay, well, we all care about each other obviously, but at the end of the day, we all are rivals, so we do have to pick which ones. It's kind of that situation of being like, oh, who's going to work hardest and who's going to fit for this role here going forward into this performance, who's going to be the most suited for it.
As they can't really come up with who wants to volunteer, obviously Karin suggests not to rely on luck with the idea of a lottery, so she leaves, and then we come to the next scene where Karin, after her job, is trying to find a location, but due to her bad sense of direction, she's trying to find it with her phone. So it's a cute little light-hearted scene that shows off more of her silly side that she tries to hide. And then it's in that bit where she's outside of Gamers that she bumps into Ayumu and Setsuna. And I do like that Setsuna, similar to the scene in one of the earlier episodes with Rina, she's trying to find that kindred spirit in her that will share in her otaku love. And then Karen's reaction to it is very funny.
I do like this wacky scene with Karin where she gets lost. I was hoping that it would appear because I really liked it in the game, and it was something that gave her quite a charm for me. So it was nice to see this vulnerable, funny side to her. And then obviously when we go into Gamers, we see the end cards as merchandise.
Yeah, we see School Idol merchandise.
Yeah, so that made me really
schools.
happy because it reminded me of Muse in the first Love Live when they see their own merch in Akihabara, and I was like, oh, that's really cute, and it gave me like a bit of nostalgia.
Karin also mentions wondering if Setsuna would have merchandise.
Since she was a solo idol before.
Yes. So after that scene, we find out that the location that Karin was trying to get to was actually just across the road, and we get some funny face reactions from Karin's bad sense of direction. And it turns out that the location was a dance studio, as Karin had been taking dance lessons because she naturally saw everyone in the group as potential rivals, and she obviously wanted to catch up as quickly as she could. She apologises for what she said the other day, but the others reassure her that they generally do need to have a serious discussion as to which one of them is going to perform at Diverfest.
I think that at this point, this is where obviously they all realise, oh, Karin's putting in a little bit extra effort. I think they believe, oh, it's time for Karin to have a go here and have her time to perform. Because I think that with Setsuna, Yu and Ayumu seeing Karin going and putting this extra work in, that was what made them go, oh, well, I think that she deserves it.
I did find that this was a nice scene, but I felt introducing this issue in just the previous scene and then wrapping up in the next scene was a little jarring. At this point of the episode, we're only 10 minutes in, half the episode, and this has already been resolved. So I did feel that in terms of the pacing was a little bit rushed, and I think if this had been over 2 episodes, this could have had more time dedicated to it. So anyway, the next day we come to the Diverfest, and of course it could only be one of the 2 diver divas that gets to perform. Karin is chosen, and I actually really like the outfit that they have for her. It's very Starlight inspired. I can feel being its own thing as well. I do like this. It's very subtle, but it gives off techno feel to it, despite it not really having that until you see the glow in the performance.
I really like it with the neon as well. My only, obviously, not at the moment, but my only bearing with it is I'm not a big fan of the hat, but I've noticed that Karin always has some form of headwear with her outfit, so what can you do?
So Yu and Ayumu run off because they want to explore the music venue, and I actually really like this confirmation that it's a music venue, it's not just school idols, and we see that school idols are actually a minority appeal in this world. It's not just school idols ruling the world, because it's easy for us to see it as an all-encompassing thing in this universe when we're only following school idols, but we see even in this world that it still has a very niche appeal for music. So we cut to a scene with Karin having a conversation with Himeno, and she ensures that she wants to put in a good performance for the club, and she doesn't want to embarrass them. She wants to represent the school, the club, with the best of her abilities. And I like that this shows the more benevolent motives, that while she wants to be the best of the club, she also takes pride in the club, and she doesn't want to let them down. So it's not just being about selfish.
I really liked it too because obviously, as you said earlier, with it, school idols not being all encompassing of the music in this universe, we also get Himeno here kind of going, oh, well, you know, those people, they're not here for us. We need to try and convince them that we're interesting. And it brings over this side of also now Karen's going, oh, I've got to put extra work in now as well. It would have been fine if it had been an idol kind of situation. She probably have won them over instantly, but this is going to be a bit more difficult for her, and that's when this wall kind of grows up in front of her.
She's can see the other side of the stadium. it's one of the sides, and she can hear the crowd in the distance, and she suddenly gets this nervous stage fright. I initially thought this came out of nowhere. This hadn't really been built up, I didn't think. But I do feel that the extra motivation of her carrying the club's wishes, plus performing in such a large audience compared to the more smaller crowds we'd seen at Rina and Kanata's performance, I could see overwhelming her. I just wish that there was a little bit more. It just feels it's just suddenly there, and it just partly comes out of nowhere. And I do think that if this had been 2 episodes, this would have smoothed out some of these issues that I have.
I think for me it was fine because obviously they're performing at a venue that's not for school idols. So it was that extra pressure of being told by a school idol that's already pretty popular, oh yeah, we're gonna struggle to try and win them over. And then I think it was kind of the idea of Karin being like, oh, if someone who's already popular is struggling and we're not at the popularity of them yet, potentially me as a person that's going to have to represent my whole school is also going to really struggle here too. And I think that was what gave that anxiety to her.
So we go to Karin obviously down. The club comes in. They all give her words of encouragement. We see Setsuna come sit next to her. You know, she mentions that, what she had said, and then she's now acting like this. And then they all essentially reassure her in her own words. You have the bit with Setsuna, you have the bit with Emma. I would have liked Emma to maybe have had a little bit more role in this episode, considering the heavy Karin focus in hers. But the little scene is cute. And then everyone gives her high fives, she's all cheered up, and she's ready to perform. I do really like that it's you that's watching from the crowd, which fits as she's a surrogate for the audience, while the rest watch from backstage.
We see Karin be a bit more open and honest with the group here, and she finally comes to rely, I think, on the rest of the group. They have all been relying on her unknowingly. So obviously, with the situation of getting the student council to agree to having the club reopen again, to helping Ayumu figure out that she can be her honest self. She's been helping people in these small acts of kindness along the way, and then she's able to outlet and be able to have that kindness returned back to her by the rest of the group here. And it really shows this camaraderie between all of them, and it was a really nice throwback. And then obviously we get the high fives from everyone, which boosts her morale even more.
So Karin performs her new song, Vivid World. And I do like this song. I'm not sure where I would place it for Karin's songs. A spectacle is the word I would use to describe this song. I love the glow that comes off her outfit, it matching the pen lights in the crowd. This is definitely the most idolish that we've gotten to this series to the date. Someone actually performing and then people actually waving the glow sticks in support.
I like the song. It feels really high energy and high upbeat. It definitely beats Wish for me in ranking wise of her songs. I really like this like neon kind of aesthetic. It feels almost like you're at a nightclub, which is perfect for Karin.
Behind her it looks like a galaxy with the stars falling. Yeah.
And then we also get references to her UR cards and some normal cards as well. But we also get a nice reference to her voice provider from one of her PVs. And it was really nice to see the like Diva Diva outfit snuck in there as well. I actually think that Karin was perfect for this performance at this show, as we see a lot of like, I'm not going to say like middle-aged women, but we see a lot of older women, and I think that her aesthetic would really match to them and really get their gain on for the group. So I think she was the perfect choice for this performance.
I agree with you actually on the Karin being the most, because the stage looks amazing with all the colours. So you've got the crowd in front, you've got like the galaxy and the stars falling behind you, and as a model it feels like Karin's was designed to wow the eyes. It's supposed to be a feast on the eyes, and I think it accomplishes that quite nicely. The only slight issue that I have with the song is that I'm not a massive fan of auto-tuning, and I do feel it was maybe a little overdone in some of her singing, just a little bit. But the actual performance was very, very good. Visually, this was a blast. You could watch this and
anyone could be drawn in.
Yeah, you'd be drawn in so easily. I don't think there's a lot of substance to it. It's more flash than substance, but it was a good performance. And then afterwards, we get some really cool shots of you watching from the crowd. I thought the cinematography here was really cool. It's like she's envisioning how she wants their concerts to go in the future. And we also see some of the venue goers that are now interested in school idols because of Karin's performance.
It was really nice to see that Jimeno was actually Karin's biggest fan here. Instead of actually having like malicious intent here, she actually just really wanted to see her favourite Karin, like her favourite person perform.
So I never thought that she was having any malicious intent, because that's not really it. They've never really done it in Love Live where they've had like one of the rival groups ever be like villainous. And there is something I actually was thinking is, in terms of like Muse and Aqua's, with their relationship with their rival group Saint Snow and Arise, wise, is that idea of friends but rivals in a way. And then this is it, but it's now, instead of it being about two separate groups, it's about the group as a whole, is this idea of being friends but rivals. So I thought it was interesting where it's like a dynamic that has appeared in the past, but it's now being reframed as part of the group instead. As a metaphor, I actually thought it was actually well put together.
We also see obviously you being rejuvenated and excited for the potential in the future, which I think at this point we're all excited for. We've seen all the girls' solo songs, so we're excited to see what's going to come next for them.
So after the ED, we get that they are starting to plan for their concert, which I think might be the plot of the last few episodes, and it looks like the next episode we're going to get a training camp episode, which has become a staple of Love Live. I feel like we always get one once a season, and they're usually light-hearted fun affairs. What I'm really looking forward to is unique interactions between the groups, characters that don't usually hang around with. I'd like to see some more interaction with.
I'm excited to see everyone be a bit more in a friendlier setting, instead of being like, oh, we know that we're going to have a song at the end of the episode, so we have to focus purely on this character. So it's exciting, like you said, to see them all interact with each other.
This
in the
should
next
be
one.
the first episode where it's not focused on just one girl. So there's an opportunity for a lot of potential, I think.
I'm also really hoping that Rena's going to have like a spooky moment, because her event, obviously, the kind of like spooky one where she's tricking everyone and pulling pranks, I'd really like for that to come in this like episode as well, where she kind of tricks everyone, and we get to see this other side of like trickery from Rena as well, which I always really like.
I think this would be one last little fun, light-hearted episode before we get into the more maybe plot-centric of the concert planning.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.